everyone, Jester Bell is back, and if you remember, back in January, was it? I did a video talking about how there is a new writer at DC Comics named Stephanie Phillips who's writing Harley Quinn, and how after I was just kind of completely jumping off of comics because of how bad they got, and I'm still pretty much jumped off, I thought that she might actually bring some good to the character after the character has become so fractured beyond recognition over the past 10 years, 5 years, give or take. Just completely destroyed beyond recognition, and this new writer was giving me a little hope that the character would start to be written a bit better. And was I right? Well, pretty much. So I read the new issue. It's the first issue of the new Harley Quinn run that just came out a couple days ago. I was very apprehensive about it. I was only picking it up because I had heard good things from other fans who I know their tastes and all that. So I decided I'll just get the digital form. I couldn't find it anywhere else. And so I read it, just kind of anxious about it, and I actually found a lot that I liked in it. And a lot that I disliked in it, but we'll talk about that in a minute. So let's talk about the positives. The most positive thing I can say about this comic is that the voice of Harley in her pre-New 52 form has pretty much come back. Now, for those of you who don't understand what I'm talking about, when you get to the New 52, when you go pre-New 52, Harley had a very specific voice. It was Arlene Sorkin's voice from Batman the Animated Series, who was doing a Judy Holliday impression. You know, it had that little New York accent, not too much. And then when you get into New 52, particularly the comics written by Jimmy Palmiotti, am I saying that right, and Amanda Conner, they completely changed her voice. They completely changed every aspect of her personality into a completely different character that they liked, and that was completely different than the original. Just to focus, even her dialogue was different. Again, I just described the original character's voice. Their dialogue was like this overdone baby talk where every word that had to be written in like this weird mangled, because they had to convey that she was talking like a 40-year-old trying to do a baby impression to a 6-year-old or something like that. It was unreadable dialogue. And unfortunately, those writers started this precedent that now any writer who took on the character either wrote her as this really generic, wacky, crazy voice, or they would just do their own take on the character and make her sound like a completely different character each time. And that's been a huge frustration in the comics, because it's like, not only is this character nothing like she was in the past, but she's nothing consistent now. Every comic I pick up, every writer I pick up, whether it's Tom King or Sam Humphries, it's a different voice. So what makes Stephanie Phillips' writing good is, while it's not perfect writing, while it's not like the exact way I would say Paul Dini was writing Harley in the 1990s, it's very close to pre-New 52. It sounds much more closer to her and more consistent with her than anything else we've heard for just so long with the character in comics. And it's very refreshing. And some of the dialogue where they tried some banter and jokes wasn't funny. It was just a little bit annoying and like it was trying too hard. Some of it was funny. And so and there was nothing dirty in this comic, which is I really appreciated, because people have done such dirty things with Harley recently. And I just liked it that, she's not sleeping around or anything like she did in the New 52 again. She's not doing anything like with gross out humor or stupid fart jokes. None of that is in this comic. It's very much, exact personality and voice-wise what you would be doing back in the pre-New 52 days. And there's also, we're going to talk about the negatives. This is a redemption story, and that is something I want to talk about in my negatives, but you get a lot of her villainous side in this comic, and those are some of my favorite moments, where you can see while she's being harassed, her original Jester suit outfit starts to come out, and it starts to try to fight people, even though she's trying to suppress it. I liked how those elements came out of her, because I do prefer Harley as a villain, or at least a wild card anti-hero who does not make the right decisions all the time. And you see that where she wants Batman to pay her for working for him or working with him. She thinks that she should get paid for working for Batman, and I thought that was a funny moment. And it was a moment like that almost almost made me feel like I was reading a comic that would have been written in the Batman animated series tie-in days. Those tie-in comics to Batman animated series are my favorites ever done with the character. But so on to the negatives. I it's kind of difficult to like a comic so much when I just don't like the core direction of a comic. I like elements in the comic, but I don't like the core direction of making Harley an out and out superhero who hates Joker and works so closely with Batman, not only with Batman, but as a trusted ally. So, and some people will say, but even in the old days, Harley had these moments where she'd team up with Batman, she'd have redemption moments. Yeah, but those were treated as flippant and something that she would always backslide from because her true self was very villainous. To make her just, she affirms multiple times in the comic about how I'm one of the good guys now. I'm working with good. I'm not on the side of the bad guys. I'm just completely done with that, and I'm a good person now. I hate the Joker. I hate all the old stuff that I used to do with him. For me, that just made me wince because I'm like, that's not Harley. That's not ever going to be Harley to me. These are core elements you're going against. And to have her working with Batman and have him say that he needs to rely on her now and to not get out of line, I'm like, that Batman would never rely on Harley. I'm sorry. I just can't accept that. And so that's why it was just an experience where I was happy that I was finally enjoying a mainstream Harley comic, probably more than I ever have in my entire fandom of her, because I got into Harley after this stuff had started in comics. But then you have the direction, which I still vehemently disagree with. I don't agree with them reforming her to this extent. There's good news, though, is that they've kind of left the door open in this comic to make her backslide if they should choose to do so. I mentioned that we see those glimpses where the villainous version of her personality is seeping through, and she is warned not to backslide, not to take any steps back. So you could see her backslide into her original persona, or you could see her seeing how people are mistreating her in Gotham and not accepting her in Gotham, because that's one of the key points of the comics, is that people are distrusting and unaccepting of her still. We could see her be pushed away because of that and say that maybe being, going back to the bad person she was, maybe that's just who she was and that's who she needs to be. It's all a matter if DC chooses to go that direction. And I've heard it said that the reason that they're not is because they believe that the character won't sell as much merchandise or whatever if people don't think she's a good person. That makes me mad. More people were buying her when she was a villain. And when you try to redeem the character, again, that's another thing that just makes it with their rewriting of the narrative, which is what just annoys me so much. They make her claim that she was just purely manipulated by Joker to do the bad things she did, and no, she wasn't. She made her own choices. And in the original story, she was the villain of her own story in that aspect. And these days, they're changing the narrative to make it sound like she was always a good person who just didn't see the obvious wrong she was doing. And so now that they can say that she's a good person, buy her merchandise, she's a good person. You don't have to feel bad about liking her. That's how I feel they're selling her, and that's what annoys me the most. Stop rewriting this character just to appease people who never even understood who the character was in the first place. So you can see it's a mixed bag, but I know I'm leaving on a low point where I'm talking about all the negatives of it, and I'm just on a conflicted conflicted plane, if you will. I should also talk about how the fact that this is an actual story in the comic. What the comics with this character haven't done in a very long time is have an actual story. You have Sam Humphries doing a random story about how she starts a YouTube channel, about how Harley is whining about her mom we never knew about before. Yeah, you probably don't know what I'm talking about right now because you probably haven't seen all this stuff they done in comics, but I've lived through it. This story, even though I don't agree with the direction, again, it takes time to set itself up. It sets up where the character is at. It sets up how she's feeling, how people are treating her, who she wants to team up with, and where she's at right now. And it was an actual story, and I actually felt compelled to complete it as I was reading it there on my iPad. So yeah, a big plus there again. So, as you can see, there's a lot of pros and cons to this comic. It is probably the best the character's been written in mainstream comics in a long time, but there's still a lot of flaws. This is a very messed up character, and DC is going to have to take a lot of time to fix her. but it looks like they at least saw maybe some of the problem in just writing her as just such a shallow Deadpool ripoff. I'll just use that phrase since it's the easiest and people use it all the time. It seems like they've seen some of the problems and are trying to at least compromise. We can even see compromising with the character's new outfit, which is like the bleached skin and the pink and blue hair from Suicide Squad, but she still has the red and black bodysuit and red and black hair bows, which bring up an overall cute look to the character versus the slutty look they've been going with. And so it's a lot of pros in the midst of some bigger cons I have. So I'm kind of caught between wanting to continue to buy this comic to reward better work and not wanting to because I don't want them DC to think that everyone's cool with this hero direction they're going in. But I think the breaker for me is that it's just way too expensive for single issues month to month, so I'll probably just get in and trade. But overall, I think it's a semi-positive update for the character. I hope they keep cycling back to things that are original. As I saw someone comment, if you're going to go halfway, why don't you go all the way? And I think that that's what they need to keep doing. And I completely respect people who don't want to read this comic because it's not all the way back, or they're just tired because of all the stuff they've tried with the character that's bad that DC's been doing. Perfectly fine. I wanted to give my update as an obsessed fan who reads most everything and who finally found something that might be a little bit better. So let me know what you think about this in the comments, and stay tuned for the next video about more comic book stuff and more movie stuff, and I will see you next time.